All right, everybody, welcome in to Load the Box. My name is Jordan Hawthorne. I am joined, as always, by the intelligent, the Twins fan, Mr. Will Goodwin. Follow him on Twitter at Will Badlose. Have to throw it out there. It's the best Twitter handle of all time. Will, let's just jump right into some news really quickly. I think the biggest news on a Wednesday evening is always going to be the injury report for the this week's upcoming game. This week, the Vikings only have 3 guys on it. They have Zadarius Smith, who is limited with a knee injury. They have Cam Dantzler, who was a full participant with a hip injury. And then they have, finally, I kind of jumped the gun. I said that Andrew Booth was back in practice last week on the little ticker. I put it in there. He wasn't. I lied. I'm sorry. Andrew Booth is limited in practice this week with that quad injury. We were talking before the show a little bit about the Vikings, their injury luck, if you will, this season. What do you think? How big is one, the health of this team, and then two, what do you think Andrew Booth, can bring to this team?
Yeah, and hey Jordan, it's good to see you again. The uh we were talking about how incredible it is that the Vikings injury report every week has seemed to be, vastly smaller than their opponents, which is obviously great to see. The NFL season is, it's still very young. We're only about a fourth of the way through it. So there's obviously plenty of time for injuries to pile up, but at this point in the season, it's it's good to see that we're staying relatively healthy, especially with a decently veteran roster. So, um, Andrew Booth, I think it remains to be seen what sort of impact he can have on this team. Um, he was good in preseason. I thought he played all right in the limited action that he did get. But preseason only shows you so much, and the ability to make an impact. I think sometimes we, from an outsider's perspective, have a maybe, I don't know, a naivete in terms of looking at the impact that somebody can have. And so I don't want to, jump to any conclusions with him, especially considering that he went from, everyone was thinking, oh, he might start, and then now he's last on the depth chart. So it's I want to, slow our roll a little bit with him, and um, doesn't mean that, he was a wasted draft pick or anything like that. I think, and we can get to that later, talking about the rookies or whether or not, they've been disappointing. Maybe that's a topic for another day. But I think, having an extra body out on the outside is obviously helpful, and he's a playmaker. So I would love to see him in action, but I think, I'm okay. I'm okay with him taking his time as well.
Yeah. I think that a Vikings fan, I think you kind of mentioned, slow it down. We saw him in preseason. He looked all right. I think that a lot of this year's draft picks, I think the front office knew the defense is going to look very similar to last season. I don't think they expected these guys to come in and be day one contributors. But I think you look at Andrew Booth, he's going to replace Pat Pete in this on this defense. You look at Andrew Lewis Cine, excuse me. I don't want to make jokes about Lewis Cine anymore because he did have that leg injury, which, by the way, expected to make a full recovery. I think he is still in London. I don't want to report on things that I don't know. He could be back now, but I think he is still in London. But Lewis Cine was like a Harrison Smith replacement. I think they're kind of looking more towards the next couple of seasons rather than making last year's draft all about finding guys that were going to be home runs right away. So I think we'll kind of see what happens, but we can talk. This is off-season talk. Honestly, we got a game on Sunday. I mean, we gotta focus in. We gotta get ready. Our bodies, our sleep clocks, they're all jacked up. We had to get up at 7 or 8 a.m. on Sunday, and in my case, I had to go get donuts and Dunkin'
You had
coffees
to,
with my
man.
wife. I had to. She woke me up. My wife woke me up and said, "Can we go get Dunkin'?" And I said, yeah, sure, cool." And so we went and we got Dunkin', and we took the dog, and it was a good time. She got a little cup of whipped cream. But we in all seriousnness, the team does, will they have any jet lag? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be a factor. They're playing the Chicago Bears. I'm going to say it right now. They are a fraudulent 2-2 team. I look at this team play football, and I am curious how they have gotten a victory. Maybe that says something about Trey Lance. I don't think so because of the weather in that game. This team does not look that great to me, Will. But go ahead, give me your overall quick take of the Chicago Bears as a whole. But then, I mean, just let's start breaking into some matchups that we think, are going to be favorable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's if there was anything like a trap game in the NFL, which there really isn't, not like in college where, you kind of look ahead to Alabama or you're looking ahead to Ohio State, or if you're like in, Minnesota's case, you might look ahead to Wisconsin or something and overlook Northwestern and then, lay an egg. In the NFL, that doesn't really exist because I think everyone has a decent level of respect for every opponent. If ever was one, this might be it. Yes, the Bears are 2-2, like you said. Their schedule, I don't know where it stands in terms of strength of schedule, if that even is calculated at this point in the season, but it's not been good. I mean, they hosted a 49ers team, which, give the Bears credit, they won that game, but Trey Lance looked awful. He looked over his skis in his first game. Again, I don't want to make too many snide comments about him because he also had a gruesome injury, but then you had the Texans after that, at the Giants. Neither of those are terribly difficult games. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay on the road on Sunday night was no walk in the park. But the Bears have not had a very difficult schedule in terms of the quarterbacks they've faced, especially. So it's really hard to place a value on their strength of schedule and their really overall makeup at this point. But they're not a team that I really fear in any way. The one thing that they really do pretty well is they run the ball well. At least, statistically, they're first in rushing attempts and they're third in rush yards. So, they're and then on the flip side, they're last in pass attempts. So they never throw the ball. So it's going to be a different sort of approach than it was against Philadelphia because, they threw the ball a lot more than Chicago does. But again, it has to be a stop the run first, make sure you contain the mobile quarterback sort of game plan. And we can get into maybe some specific matchups in a second,
Yeah.
but that's one that I'm concerned about is, our ability to stop a mobile quarterback because Minnesota's history has not been great in stopping mobile quarterbacks, nor has Ed Donatell's. So that's a concern that I have. But generally speaking, this is not a scare you out of your seat sort of game.
No, and you know what? Look, Kevin O'Connell. We talked on a Day Late and a Dollar show Monday night. Which if you want to hear our thoughts on that Saints game, go back, give it a like, subscribe, and a listen or whatever. But we talked about how O'Connell has brought a swagger, a relentlessness, a never say die attitude to this team. I'm gonna carry that swagger. I typically this is one of those games where I'm like, nobody expect this game to get out of hand. I think the Vikings match up very favorably against Chicago, especially because I just view, and this is going to be my first matchup, and I kind of hinted at it, in our pre-show discussions. Justin Jefferson might be going up against the Bears' second string defensive backs because Jalen Johnson did not practice today. He is dealing with an injury.
He was out last week too.
Yeah, and so the question is O'Connell going to be relentless in his attack with Justin Jefferson in this passing offense? Because I think what this game could come down to, and we'll get to score predictions, we'll get to game balls, what this game to me looks like is the Vikings passing attack has its way and puts up 7 after 7 very quickly, and the Bears run the ball, and they probably do find success running the ball with Donatell's, death by 1,000 cuts, play everybody back off the line, that kind of a defense. So the Bears do find success running the ball, but it takes them, 7 minutes to do what the Vikings do in 2.5. And eventually, we will get a couple of run stops. We do have Dalvin Tomlinson. We do have Harrison Phillips and Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks. We have solid pieces on this defense. Eventually, the Vikings will get run stops. I don't know the name that jumps out to me in Chicago's secondary that is going to shut down Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and KJ Osborne. And then I won't even get into the pass rush and everything, just in case you want to touch on that. But to me, that is the biggest matchup for me. And I think every week my biggest matchup is typically a good secondary against the Vikings, good wide receivers. And typically it's like, oh, I'm excited to watch this fight. I feel like I'm watching Mike Tyson fight a pizza guy. Like, this should be a knockdown, easy 1, 2, 3, 10 count, however you want to put it. Like, this should be an easy dub for the Vikings wide receivers, and hopefully that leads to an easy dub for the Minnesota Vikings. What matchup do you have? I do have some that concern me that we can get to, but what matchup do you have that I want the one that you're excited about? I want to start this show off hot. I want to start off with the, we're going to win this game by 1,000,000. What are you excited to watch on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the pass rush, and this is going to be a preamble for my game ball. I'll just say that now. The Bears have an atrocious offensive line when it comes to stopping pass rush. It's almost synonymous with Vikings of years past, where we could run the ball but couldn't stop a pass rush to save our lives. And I think they're allowing. I've seen different numbers, so I don't really know which one to trust. But what I'll say is that second highest pressure rate allowed in the NFL. It's over 35%, so it's bad. And so if we can get in the lap of Justin Fields and make him uncomfortable, he's going to have a very long day. He doesn't make great decisions. He throws a lot of balls up for grabs. He's got the worst passer rating in the NFL, and it's not terribly close. It's at 58.7 right now. So he's been just really bad. There's really no other way to put it. When he runs the ball, he's effective. Throwing the ball, not so much. And, granted, fewest passing attempts in the league, so they're really not trying to throw the ball very much, so you give him maybe a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there. They're not really giving him much of a chance to grow in his ability to throw, but the Vikings pass rush has to tee off on this offensive line, and they get the chance. Granted, the Bears will run it far more than they pass it. When the Vikings do have a chance to rush the passer, they have to get home.
Yeah.
And I think that's one where, the Vikings fans are all kind of antsy, waiting for Danielle Hunter to really, get going, and Zadarius Smith to he had a sack, I guess, in London, but he wasn't like all over the place, explosive with his little injury that he's been dealing with in his knee. Fans are waiting for us to explode, sort of, and I think this could be a game where if we force the Bears into dropping back to pass more than they want to, it could get really ugly really fast.
Yeah.
So that's the matchup that I think looking forward to the most. A, to see how much we've grown over the going into week 5 here, and B, just excited to see what we can do, because I think it could be a lot of fun for a Vikings fan if we're able to get in positions where the Bears have to throw. So that's kind of my most exciting matchup.
Yeah, I think it's going to be so crucial to get them behind the sticks. I think you kind of alluded to that. Get them in positions where they have to. Like, if you can get a tackle for loss on first down, ask any Vikings fan what happens on 2nd and 12 when you want to run the ball. You still run the ball. So let them get into 3rd and 8 or more yard situations, and I think Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith should be licking their chops.
Yeah. I mean it's there for the taking, and it's a prime opportunity for a defense that is they've had moments, but they've been generally not great. This is a game and a prime opportunity for them to sort of get right, and as people often say. So I think this should be a game where the players are uber excited for to get on the right track as well.
Yeah. I don't want, and I'm not trying to bring the vibe down. Like I alluded to before your take, I do have concerns in this game, and I don't want to be negative Nancy, which I think that's my new apparently just nickname for the show for myself. Is I'm just going to keep saying that. But the Vikings offensive line did not play its best game in London against the Saints, and now granted, Cam Jordan is a name like I'll be honest with you, off the top of my head without looking at my notes, I can't even tell you one of the Bears defensive linemen's names off the top of my head. Just because they haven't made impact plays, and they really are a rebuilding team. I think they're kind of all in on this, like, we're not going to be very good. We're going to get a high draft pick, and we're going to try and make something of it. But that being said, Brian O'Neill had a couple of penalties. Garrett Bradbury almost, I think, looked human, which I guess we should expect. But
Shouldn't be surprised.
shouldn't be surprised. But I was hoping he would keep that hot streak. The line overall, outside of I think like Christian Darrisaw, I think I saw the stat that two of the linemen were in the top 3 PFF graded Vikings. And then 3 of the linemen were in the bottom 3. And so I would like to see, it was a weird stat. It was not a stat, but it was just a weird thing that happened. And so I think you're seeing very high levels of play from guys like Darrisaw, and then you're seeing some, not so much from the Ed Ingrams and last week Garrett Bradbury. So I'm going to hope that the line also sort of has a get-right day against a Chicago Bears defensive line that does not have names that jump off the page at you and say, oh, we got to double team him. But I also hope they're not expecting to not play, grown men that are playing in the NFL. Because if they come into this game and they're not on their A game, forget everything I said about the wide receivers. Kirk Cousins is going to be under pressure. He's going to be under duress. And now we're looking at, oh boy, there's 2 minutes to go. Chicago is dominating time of possession because they're running the ball, and the Vikings find themselves down, 5 or 6 points. And they got to make something happen, and Kirk is flustered and gritting his teeth and doing all of those things. And so I really need to see the line, even though, like I said, like you said, no trap games. That doesn't exist. But I need the line to understand they are playing an NFL defensive line, point blank period. Come out there, maul them, look elite, look great, be great. And give Kirk Cousins time to just absolutely shred this defense apart. Who scares you, or what scares you, I should say, this week?
Yeah, the on that Bears defensive side, I mean, they're not terrible, honestly. They're kind of middle of the pack, sort of. They're 12th in yards, 22nd in points. So if you kind of even it out, it's sort of in the middle.
Right.
But the thing that is interesting about this team, they're honestly kind of similar to the Vikings in terms of not great defense, but they kind of stand up when they need to. They've got 7 takeaways. The Vikings have 6. The Bears are relatively stingy in the red zone. They're not like elite, but they're only allowing touchdowns on half the drives. So the Vikings and their, red zone struggles to this point, I think that's kind of my main sort of piece of concern outside of as I already mentioned, the Justin Fields could run all over the place if we don't contain him. The Vikings have to convert red zone opportunities to touchdowns. We're talking about this game being one where if they get out to a lead and they extend that lead, they could make the Bears really uncomfortable, and it could have Bears fans asking for Trevor Siemian to jump in the game instead of Justin Fields. That's like where this game could go if things go well. But in order for that to happen, you can't settle for field goals because it takes 3 field goals to make it a 2-possession game. So that's sort of the probably the main point of concern for me. Maybe not concern, but just sort of key matchup that maybe has a negative connotation in terms of what the Vikings have been able to do so far this season. If we're able to convert those opportunities to touchdowns, again, I think this could be a more comfortable victory than we've seen this season.
Yeah, I like it. I think that's a really good point to bring up. As you were saying that, the little scrolly ticker at the bottom said, Greg Joseph named NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. We don't want that. We want him to make the kicks when we need him to. We would rather him be kicking extra points and like 1 to 2 field goals in a game, not 5 field goals with a missed extra point. So I agree with you. I think that this game just feels, and I guess we'll get into score predictions and game balls. This game just has a feel to me of hey, the offense has struggled to put points up, and I didn't bring the stat up on Monday night, but last season the Vikings offense scored 28 points per game. That's rounding down. This season they are scoring 25, and so you kind of want to see. I mean, last season, granted, some of them were in losses. We were getting into like the 30s pretty regularly, and you kind of want to see them start doing that. This has get right, bounce back. This seems like the week where everything should just click into place and we can move on and we can have a really big game against potentially Teddy Bridgewater and the Miami Dolphins in the Teddy Revenge game, which will break my heart. Getting into the score prediction before I do the game ball, I'm going to go ahead and say the Vikings are going to pull this one out 38-17 this week. Like I said, I think Chicago's going to put up some points. I don't expect them to go crazy. I don't expect this to be a shootout. But I do expect Chicago to get in the end zone a couple of times, drive the ball, eat some clock, that kind of thing. I just expect the Vikings to have a wealth of very impressive possessions that we look back on and we think, yeah, this was the game that Kevin O'Connell, told Kirk Cousins, hey, take this shot here, and Kirk starts getting it. Jefferson's not going to be going up against, Darius Slay. I can't say Marshawn Lattimore because he toasted him, but Jeff Okudah, even if they do double or triple team him, I think KJ and Thielen are going to have big days. I haven't even mentioned, I don't think either of us have, Dalvin Cook is still on this football team, and he has looked pretty good this season, even with a slightly dislocated shoulder. So I'm really expecting the Vikings to pull this one out, get a 3-possession victory right into Miami, feeling themselves, be it 4-1, a win here. This is a stupid thing to say in week 5. If the Vikings win out, they win the division. It's just as simple as that. So, keep first place in the division. Maybe the Giants do something frisky to make that a little bit of a bigger lead. And maybe it's just because I'm going to be at this game, and that's why I'm expecting it to be a big win. I'm really crossing my fingers. My game ball for the week, I have the offensive side, and I can't go with the offensive line because I expect them to play very well. And I kind of like to give my game ball to the shocking option. And this week, I'm going to give my game ball to Irv Smith Jr. I'm going with a tight end. I thought about it. I really did. But I expect Cousins and Jefferson to have a big day in this game. Yeah. And granted, I will gladly come on Monday night, or next Monday night, and say Kirk Cousins deserved a game ball, like just point blank. I think he played amazing. But I think Irv Smith is starting to get this, like, he can't catch a ball. He dropped the touchdown in Philly, blah, blah, blah. I would like to see him have a breakout game and say, hey, Minnesota fans, this is why everyone was devastated when I blew my knee out last season. This is why everyone was so excited for my training camp this season and my development. I want to see Irv Smith not just find the end zone, but I want to see him show off the elite athleticism that he has for a tight end and maybe get like a 50 or 60-yard touchdown, something the Vikings haven't seen from a tight end. What, Visante Shenko? Did he do that maybe sometimes? Like, Kyle Rudolph wasn't doing it,
yeah.
Unless it was a Hail Mary. So I want to see him make this like freaky athletic play, and I just want to see him really eat because I do think Jefferson's going to have 3 or 4 bodies on him at all times, and they're not going to want to let him beat you. So somebody has to step up. Yeah, it might be Thielen. Yeah, it might be KJ. I want to see Smith Jr. come out there and really establish himself as tight end 1. 38-17 is my final score prediction. Will, I'll go ahead and pass it off to you.
Yeah, similar sort of feel. You can kind of get the sort of vibe from both of us that we think this should be a comfortable Vikings win. I'm going to go 31-16. The only real difference is I don't really think the Bears will be able to score many touchdowns. They struggle to. When you struggle to throw the ball, it's hard to score touchdowns. So
That's very true.
And they got 4 field goals against the Giants. 3 of them were inside the red zone, I believe. So I don't see the Bears really scoring a bunch of touchdowns. I think they'll move the ball a little bit. The Vikings defense is by no means elite, so I think they'll be able to move it a little bit. But yeah, I think really the only sort of thing that might be a point of concern kind of on if the Vikings can get, 31, 38 points, I'm saying 31, is the Bears kind of always play the Vikings close, for the most part, and the Vikings beat the Bears last year at US Bank 31-17. So obviously, I'm predicting a similar-ish outcome, but even that game was clunky. And
Yeah.
granted, it was Week 18 and no one really cared. But um, what I'm saying is games against the Bears are never easy. So regardless of, how anemic their offense is or how kind of, mediocre-ish their defense is, it'll probably be more competitive than we want it to be. But I think at the end of the day, the Vikings win by 2 scores. Game ball, like I said, I hinted at it earlier. Pass rush, the guy that everyone's banging on, saying, what's wrong with him. Daniil Hunter's gonna have a big day. I think it's time. Like I said, this is a chance for him to tee off against a bad pass blocking offensive line. And if the Vikings get ahead to a couple score lead, like I think they will, it's going to be Fields having to drop back to throw, and it's going to be a very long afternoon for the young quarterback. So I think Daniil Hunter will get in his lap a few times. I don't even care if he gets a sack. I just think he's going to make number one's afternoon really uncomfortable. So
I love it.
that's my guy.
Big day for SEC Vikings in Load the Box's opinion. There's something here, and I'm going to spitball while we're live for my final thoughts. Both of us are predicting a Vikings win, which is pretty cool, which means we are unified in our thoughts of victory this Sunday, which, Unified Athletic Wear, they make this amazing hat. They make other colors of hats, too. I think they're coming out with a Florida Gators one that I actually am very interested in. If you can't tell, Florida's kind of my vibe. They have a new fall collection that's out. It's really cool. It's not all like Cincinnati-based stuff. They are a Cincinnati-based company. It is not like they have generic like just Halloween designs and fall designs. It's really cool stuff. Definitely check them out at unitiedathleticwear.com. Follow the show on Twitter at LTB Vikings. Follow Will on Twitter at WillBadLose, best Twitter handle of all time. Check out Vikings Territory and PurplePTSD.com for daily Vikings takes and articles and just great content, just overall great content. And then tune in next Monday night at the same time, 7:45 Central, 8:45 Eastern, whatever. Where I will be jet lagged because I am traveling a whole hour back in time zone. I will say I actually am probably going to be exhausted.
Man.
I'm going to be exhausted, not because of the jet lag, but because of the 22 hours of driving in 48 hours of whatever. But that's really it. I think this is going to be a big day for the Vikings. I'm super excited to come up to Minnesota. Probably going to bring you a can of Cincinnati chili, just that way you can try that, even though you're going to hate it. And other than that, Skull, I'm hyped. I'll pass it off to you for your final thoughts, man.
Yeah, honestly, most importantly, I'm just excited for you to get to your first Vikings game. So
Yeah.
I think it's long overdue for our diehard Cincinnati Vikings fans. So I'm excited for you. I hope for your sake it is a raucous, joyous occasion, and it's a little less stressful than when I went to the Lions game last week. So,
hey, can I ask
let's.
you one question? I do want to ask this. I want to ask this live and on air. Is a Juicy Lucy like? Do I have to try it while I'm up in Minnesota? Is it like that good? Are you a fan?
So I'm not like the biggest burger guy in the world, so I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. But when I do enjoy a burger, and I'm out with friends, it's generally what people want to get. So we can chat off air. There's a couple places too that you might want to check out. Where are you guys staying, by the way?
We are staying at I think it's a Marriott or a Hilton. We're staying
Downtown.
0.9 miles away from the stadium. It's like it's
Okay.
it's a walking distance to the stadium. So we'll be in like the
Honestly,
downtown area. For sure.
honestly, what I think you should do instead of a Juicy Lucy, this might be a little bit of a hot take, is go to Parlor. It's a restaurant, kind of speakeasy-ish. Um, it's in the North Loop area of Minneapolis, close to the stadium. You can probably walk to it.
Okay.
Very small menu, but they have one burger on it, and that burger is to die for. So I'll get you the deets after the show. The other place that you could try out is Red Cow, also close. There's a restaurant in Minneapolis, so those are both burger places. I'd say you can't go wrong with either of those. quite
I will
frankly. And
say,
then
Minnesota put this man on blast. He has just recommended I not try the Juicy Lucy, and I go to other places and get something that isn't the Juicy Lucy.
hey, they're
So
both burgers though.
yes, yeah. I'm definitely going to be eating some cow. That is 100% on. I don't know. I'm probably just going to get hot wings. That's what I usually do. But all right. That's the last you're going to hear from me until Monday night.
And last thing I'm gonna say is just Jordan commented on my Twins hat. I had to wear it last day of the MLB season today. Um, so now with the Vikings kind of being the sole proprietor of sporting events in the Twin Cities for at least the next few weeks before the Timberwolves and Wild get rolling. Um, Hopefully the fan base grows even more than it already is. So excited to have some more disgruntled Twins fans on the Vikings bandwagon. And um, other than that, it's been a blast tonight. We're looking forward to Sunday, especially Jordan. And that's all we got. We'll talk to y'all on Monday. Skol as always.